That wasn't in the text. Okay. All right, so what I want to do now is you kind of got a sense as to where I'm coming from as someone who has a great deal of anecdotal, experiential kinds of stories and an understanding of the faith community here in Seattle and some of its issues, its problems, its limitations, as well as its successes. But I want to hear from all of you. I mean, the fact that you're here today means that you're kind of a self-selected group anyway. You're what I like to call myself, and I mean this in the best possible way, you're God geeks, right? You're here because you enjoy religion, you enjoy faith, you enjoy talking about these things. And so in many ways, you know, you're already kind of the convinced in some ways, or maybe not. But from what, I'm sure we all have friends that we've spoken to, that when we tell them we're going to church, or we're going to a Bible study, or we're going to work at a soup kitchen with our faith community, people look at us askance and think that we're insane. Why would you do that? Why do you need the story? Why do you need that sense of the big spirit in the sky to do good in the world? Can't you just be moral and good without that? And so those of us with faith are often a beleaguered minority here in the Pacific Northwest. I want to get a sense from you, from your experiences, if you have questions of me based on what I talked about, or based on what is in the book, and there's some resources back there to tell you more, and a website as well. Please, you know, feel free to ask. But I want to hear a little bit from you, just for my own edification, for book number 2, right? What are the things you think faith communities in Seattle do right, and what is it that we do wrong in terms of how we appeal to this specific, unique, idiosyncratic population here in the Pacific Northwest? What do you think we're doing right? And I'll kind of take I have broad shoulders, I'll take the position of all formal faith communities and all the good and the evil that we've done here. It could be, not evil, but good and mistakes that we've made. What do you think faith communities are doing right, and what do you think they're doing wrong, and what boats are they missing, and what should they be doing differently? What do you think? Perhaps that's the new paradigm. Perhaps the new paradigm is something of beyond ecumenism and beyond interfaith, where people are creating hybrid religious experiences. And the question is, if many people are, I don't know if that's an exception or if that's a trend. If it's an exception, it's interesting to learn about. If it's a trend, then that would certainly compel institutional religions to understand what it means to have permeable boundaries, but at the same time to have an integrity of identity, because you can be so open that you lose who you are. And the School of Theology and Ministry here, I think, sets a model for that. Who ever heard of a Jesuit college providing a Protestant seminary work? I mean, that's fairly rare, isn't it, Jim? I mean, I'm not an expert, but I haven't seen that in many other communities. I mean, some of our institutions here themselves model or reflect, you know, some of those boundary crossings in the greater community. Understanding the multifaceted power of our houses of worship. The Jewish kind of perspective on that is that a synagogue is 3 things. It's a Beit Knesset, a house of gathering for community and for support and openness. It's a Beit HaMikdash, a house of prayer, a sanctuary, and certainly sanctuary can be not just in a worshipful sense, but also as a refuge, and also a house of study. And so I think understanding that our houses of worship need to provide multiple points of entry, but also be different objects of outreach, and can provide different things, whether it's just sitting reflectively or learning or engaging in formal liturgy. They need to be kind of community centers from a faith-based perspective. That's a very powerful thing, and obviously it resonates beautifully with the folks down there. Well, first of all, we Jews are not real hip on labeling someone as sinful. We're not quite as hung up on that, but no, what I meant was that they are contented and fulfilled crafting their own religious experience and having that in many ways be a narrow, kind of isolated experience. I mean, one of the things that comes to mind is I went to a community organizing group at one time for some civic issue. And you were supposed to come up, and the first thing you're supposed to do is to write kind of your key issue on the board before we all sat down, or your key approach to this issue, or what have you. And we were expecting, the people who were leading this group, there are 300 people, we're expecting to have maybe 6 different subgroups or 6 different approaches. And what they had were 300 different approaches. Every single individual had not just a different approach, but this is the group and concern that is most of concern to me, and that's the direction we should go in. And I think in many ways that sense of individual responsibility and being self-sustaining is great. But I think there's some limitations to it, and there's a tendency for that to go from individual reliance to a kind of narcissism and cult of the self that disconnects people from greater issues, greater needs of the community, etc. Thank you very, very much. GoodGodForUs.com. You can get the book outside. Thank you very much for your attention, for your words. It was very informative. Thank you.